Although all types of people are guilty of living unstable lives by regularly moving away, this video's main focus will be the problem with Christian believers, since I expect better from Christians. First, I quote a paraphrased version of an article by Bruce Conold from Eagle Hills Church. When I was a kid, pop came in glass bottles which could be returned to the store for a nickel, and the lighters were refilled with lighter fluid. I remember when disposable plastic bottles and disposable lighters were introduced. It was a strange feeling to just throw pop bottles and lighters away. But we learned the convenience of disposable things. I have a friend named Bob. Bob moved over a dozen times growing up. At first, when Bob moved on to the next place, it felt strange to just leave his home and friends. Bob learned to not get attached to people because he knew he'd be moving on before long. Eventually, Bob began relating to other people superficially and learned the convenience of disposable relationships. We live amazingly transient lives, especially in terms of relationships. We divorce, move, change jobs and associations with little thought or care of how it may affect others. In short, we live for ourselves, and if others are negatively affected by our transitions, too bad for them. American churches are filled with transient people accustomed to disposable lighters and disposable relationships. People so accustomed to transient living that they no longer know how to genuinely relate to others. These transient people come to church, engage in superficial, personally convenient relationships that will soon be discarded so they can move along to another church where the cycle will be repeated again and again. Welcome to the disposable church. Use it for a while, then throw it away and get a new one. In the disposable church, there is little accountability, no relational vulnerability, and no commitment. This is personally convenient, me-centered Christianity. Just do as you please. Live for yourself. Have it your way. Oh, and be sure to tell everyone that all of your transient behavior is God's will for you. By huge contrast, the biblical vision calls for us to live under the lordship of Jesus in authentic Christian community. Real Christianity is best lived in a given context over an extended period. When we live, work, and relate to people in a given context over decades, we learn how to relate vulnerably to others, how to grow through adversity, how to practice real submission to spiritual authority, and how to truly love God. Many people talk about community, but few stay anywhere long enough to experience it. Transient, selfish living cauterizes our relational vulnerability. Because we know we are going to pack our bags shortly, we don't allow ourselves to be vulnerable and experience real fellowship. Here's what happens all too often. Two women, we'll say Joan and Lori, meet at church and become friends. Joan tries to relate openly and vulnerably with Lori, desiring a growing long-term relationship that produces real fruit and maturity. Lori relates superficially because she has moved away so many times and will likely move again soon. Time passes and the friendship develops. Predictably, Lori moves away. Tragically, Joan is devastated and feels betrayed by her friend leaving. Joan thought she mattered to her friend and was deeply wounded that Lori just up and left. Round 2. Joan and Lori each meet new friends in their respective churches a year later. How will each approach their new friendship? With vulnerability? Hardly. This is the modern tragedy of Christian fellowship. Our relational vulnerabilities are all but dead by constant transitions in life. However, if we invest decades in long-term relationships, we will drink deeply from the joyful springs of real community. Yet at the first hint of trouble, people run from church to church instead of iron sharpening iron and growing mature through challenges. When people hop from one church to another, are they likely to be submitted to the lordship of Jesus Christ? No, they are likely to have submitted to their own lordship and to the modern debacle of the disposable church. Feelings are nice, but they come and go, and I cannot base my love on feelings. My love for my wife grows as I am in vital relationship with her over time. When my feelings for my wife are at a low level, I do not claim that I am no longer in love with her and seek a divorce. I persevere through those times, and my love deepens and matures for my wife. Emotional ebbs and flows and conflicts are inevitable in every relationship. True love perseveres through adversity and matures. Our love grows best in the context of close relationships over the long haul. If we transition out at the first hand of conflict, then we fail to truly grow in our love for each other. People who live transient and selfish lives miss out on experiencing true love in meaningful relationships over the years. Transient behavior is so much a part of our lives that some of us grow restless anywhere after a few years and feel the need to move because our unhealthy past drives us to transition rather than grow in community. Instead, I truly desire that you experience authentic community over the long haul and not disposable people. End of article. Now, some of my own speculations. Mega millions of people bound for heaven might go to hell instead because they never befriended the friendless, or they cut off potential lifetime friendships by moving away or through unforgiveness. If heaven epitomizes the state of numerous permanent friendships, rejecting that ideal is choosing the alternative, is it not? Imagine you went to heaven, but later God moved away and took heaven with him. Or you went to heaven, but later God became irritated, so you had a rotten hell. Also, the writer of the aforementioned article is not typical of church leaders. He is atypical, unfortunately. What is typical is indifference toward people moving away so long as others replace them so the church keeps getting its money. The modern Christian world has rejected the teachings of Christ in this and numerous other areas. I'm still committed to church going every Sunday, but I know that fellow believers are unreliable along with all unbelievers. Since I know that things won't be substantially different in my lifetime, I've withdrawn from society and substitute the internet for inspiration and a social life. That's my best option. On the other hand, the National Socialist German Workers' Party denounced bickering and division among Christian believers and planned to set up a unified state church. They prohibited globalization so nobody would have a job transfer to another country, thereby breaking friendship and family ties. Moreover, the German Workers' Party was especially exasperated with Roma and Sinti people who were gypsies. Most of them traveled across the country in wagons. They refused to have any documentation whatsoever and refused to cooperate with anyone but fellow gypsies. They made their living doing fake fortune-telling, selling useless or shoddy products, prostitution, and petty theft. Individuals escaped bad reputations, escaped paying taxes, and kept causing problems and disunity because of their transience. That is, until they were codified with brown triangles and imprisoned in labor camps. American train-hopping hobos were of a similar ilk. Again, besides no accountability, you cannot love others if you don't stay around long enough to get to know them. Although things won't change in my lifetime, consider the following generations. Before our world becomes swallowed up in this mindset, radical action must be taken.